Have you ever seen someone call the cops and it backfired on them? 1. Oh yes, I'm an FAA licensed UAS, drone, pilot, and after a huge hailstorm I was hired by a homeowner's insurance company to inspect a roof in a fancy neighborhood for a damage claim. I did everything by the book, including knocking on neighbors' doors before flying to tell them what I was doing, and leaving sticky notes on the doors where nobody answered the doorbell. I was in full PPE of hard hat, safety glasses and high-vis vest with pilot and command printed on the back. I delineated my LZ and standing area, on the sidewalk in front of the house, with cones and caution tape. But 5 minutes into the flight, an irate lady comes storming out of her house next door, one of those who didn't answer when I rang the doorbell, and starts screaming at the top of her lungs at me about spying on her and that I was a pervert, creep and predator and that she was going to call the police. I calmly explained to her what I was doing, and said please read the note on the door which was on my company letterhead, and please leave me alone. It's illegal to interfere with the pilot operating an aircraft. Drones are treated exactly like Cessnas and 737s in the law. Imagine the trouble you'd be in if you did that on a Southwest Airlines flight. And please, go ahead and call the police. I of course continued the flight and didn't say another word to her, but she just got more angry, screamed louder, and started making threats. I couldn't really call the police myself. I was the pilot in command and had my hands full. She finally came charging at me, right through the cones and caution tape, and tried to grab the controller out of my hands. Very dangerous thing to do. That drone would seriously injure somebody if it crashed and hit them. At that exact moment the squad car comes around the corner, the two officers pile out and immediately drag her away from me. She's now screaming obscenities at them too. One cop asks to see my pilot's license and work order. I'm still flying so I tell him both are in the pouch on the back of my vest. Just pull them out and call the FAA to verify my pilot's license. Which they do. End result, she got a trip to the police station in handcuffs. I heard later, no jail time, but a $5,000 fine, anger management classes, and many hours of community service. And now the only procedure I've changed is that I always have a second person with me when flying, technically but in reality to run interference for me if I ever run into that situation again. I have to charge more for each to hire the observer, but after that experience, I'll never fly my drone alone again. 2. My now ex-wife wanted me out of the house and her life after I caught her red-handed having an affair. My relief called in sick so I had to pull a double shift. I got home and went right to bed, only to be woke up by her wailing away on me with a shoe. I picked her up and carried her out into the living room and gently tossed her on the couch, locked the bedroom door and went back to sleep. It wasn't long and there was a knock on the door. It was a couple cops. She had called them to report I was abusing her. They said I would have to accompany them to the station. Then I looked up at them. Their whole attitude shifted. They handcuffed her and put her in the back of the squad car. One of the cops told me I should clean myself up. Apparently she'd nailed me with a shoe and I had blood running down my face. I went to sleep. She went to jail. Couldn't have worked out any better. 3. Well, this happened to me a week ago today. I was driving from Greenville, South Carolina to Tallahassee, Florida through Macon, Georgia for work. As I am about to get onto the interstate in Macon, a small Chevy Malibu that had wanted to merge into my lane clipped my rear fender with his front fender. I get out, look at the back of my truck, noticing very little if any damage. I then look at the damage to his vehicle. At this time, the driver of the Malibu gets out and starts harassing me for not letting him into my lane, accusing me of drinking, etc. He calls the police, seeing as he is a local and has the non-emergency number already in his phone. I will admit that I was not exactly the nicest to him. Anyway, he tells me to go on and leave. I've got your license plate number. To which I responded with I'm not leaving until the cops get here. I'm not getting a charge for leaving the scene of an accident. I then sit in my truck and wait. About 10 minutes after I sit back in my truck, a county sheriff arrives and talks to the gentleman. I exit my truck with my license, registration, and insurance information to talk to the officer. He asks for my side of the story, and I tell him my version of events. I even ask to be breathalyzed to dispel any notion that I might have been drinking. The officer states that such won't be necessary and asks if I want an accident as the gentleman has caused the accident and that I had no duty to yield to him. The gentleman would be at fault. The gentleman swears at the officer and continues his accusations about me being drunk. At this time the officer tells me that I am free to go and that the gentleman will be detained pending a field sobriety test and breath analysis. Apparently the old guy was himself drunk and ended up going to jail with his Malibu going to automotive jail. Moral of the story is that turn signals do not grant right of way, and if you have been drinking and driving and cause an accident, you may not want to call the cops on yourself. 4. Yes, a neighbor's dog came into our yard and was chasing our animals. It then jumped up to a window and scared my wife quite badly. She was a stroke victim and could not escape or defend herself from an angry dog. I met the neighbor at our property line and told him, loudly, that the next time it happened would be the end for the dog. His wife hears this and calls the cops. They tell the cops the dog never left their yard. The cops show up. I show them fresh dog prints leading up to the window and a broken window screen. They take pictures and track the tracks back to the neighbor's yard. The cop asked for the window screen, and said to call him if the neighbor does not deliver a repaired screen within a week. And the neighbor did deliver. And they moved away a year later, so double bonus. Don't lie to cops. Most of the time you will get caught. 5. Yes, this happened to me. I was leaving a parking lot of a grocery store and pulling out onto a very busy road. There was a car in front of me also turning right onto the busy road. The car in front of me started to pull out. I looked to the left for traffic and let off my brake and rolled into the back of the car in front of me that had stopped instead of pulling out into the brake of traffic. Completely my fault. I have no problem admitting that. There was no damage whatsoever to either vehicle, not a transfer of paint or even a simple scuff mark. The driver of the other vehicle was livid and insisted on calling the police even though I had already given her my insurance info. The police did show up about 30 minutes later and started gathering our info. In less than 5 minutes I was told by the police I was free to leave and not to expect anything to ever happen, since not only was there no damage but the other driver was driving without insurance and had been cited for no insurance previously. I left as I watched her being loaded into the police car. 6. This was back when I was in HS. My senior year. This freshman girl decided to accuse me of rape. She picked the wrong day to make the accusation. What she forgot is I was a wrestler on the HS team, and I'd been at a tournament the whole day, took third place. Everyone is talking about it on Monday and I'm nearly a pariah. I get pulled into the dean's office for an interview with the police, the principal, and the dean of students. With the eyewitness accounts of my teammates plus various other participants in the tourney and the school bus driver's paperwork showing we arrived back at the school several hours after the alleged rape, I was quickly cleared. After that she had charges filed against her in juvenile court for filing false charges and making a false report. Judge sentenced her to 2 months in juvie and was on probation till her 18th birthday. Wow, this answer really took off. Please keep in mind this is high school I'm talking about. She was like 14 or so. So, I'm glad she got something and learned from it. And yes, I would have gotten the worst of the sentencing because I was over 18 at the time. But let's try to remember, folks, teenagers do dumbass shit. I know I did. Luckily the school had a decent lawyer in the room to rep me in the initial interview. 7. My daughter, ! She was grounded and I wouldn't let her out of the apt. She was 15 I think, and I had seen her trying to sneak out her bedroom window. So she called the cops telling them I was holding her against her will and I was standing in her bedroom door listening to her. They asked to speak to me. She said they want to talk to you, you are going to jail. While I was on the phone with them they could hear her screaming and breaking stuff, so they sent the cops out. She got taken away for destruction of property and I don't remember the rest. They didn't arrest her but they did take her to the psych ward.